Okay, if you're ready, we are going to begin. So today we've got a slightly different setup in our press conference. We're going to start with Keith Donahue, Deputy Federal On-Scene Coordinator for the U.S. Coast Guard. He will be followed by Patrick Higgins, Incident Commander for Plains All-American, and then Rick McMichael, Senior Director of Operations for Plains All-American. At that point, we will open the press conference to questions. What we would ask is that you let each presenter finish their statements, and then when we open for questions, please be recognized. Once you are recognized, please indicate your name and the affiliation you're with. Mr. Donahue.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Commander Keith Donahue. I'm with the United States Coast Guard, and I'm acting as Deputy Federal On-Scene Coordinator for this incident. Unfortunately, Captain Jennifer Williams cannot be with us this afternoon, as she is currently on an overflight overseeing the impacts of the Refugio incident, as well as along the South Bay incident tarball reports. We are aware of the significant tarball sightings in Ventura, Orange, and Los Angeles counties. As with every pollution report, the Coast Guard responds with forward-leaning approach. A separate command post was established for the tarball incidents in Los Angeles County, and we are working closely with that South Bay Incident Command Post. We have also dispatched contractors to Ventura from the Refugio incident to assess and clean up where it is needed. The Coast Guard, along with multiple partners, has collected tarball samples, which we will send out for analysis for fingerprinting to determine if the pollution is the result of the South Bay incident or from another source. As always, safety is our main priority for the community, for the responders, and for the wildlife. Our shoreline cleanup assessment teams continue to dispatch cleanup operations as we clean up the beaches and look for impacted areas. We ask the public to please stay clear of the impacted areas so these folks can continue diligently working. We thank the public for their patience while cleanup operations continue. We also want to remind the community of the public community open house event tomorrow, Saturday, May 30th, at the Elks Lodge, number 316 in Santa Barbara, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event is free and open to the public. As part of this event, numerous booths will be open with information regarding the spill to include environmental impacts, volunteer opportunities, how to file a claim, animal rescue and rehabilitation, oil technology, and operations. Members of this response will be available as subject matter experts to talk with the community, for you to ask questions and voice your concerns. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Rick McMichael, Senior Director of Operations for Plains All-American Pipeline. I would like to summarize the progress we have made so far in the work zones. Today we have close to 1,200 people working on the response across 5 zones and in the command center. Nearly 930 people are out in the field, and 250 people, including our federal, state, and local agency partners, are planning and managing the operations in the command center. On the water, we continue to track down remaining oil, above and below the surface and along the shoreline. 17 vessels and 1 barge are involved in the recovering the remaining oil on the surface of the water. Over 10,000 feet of boom continues to be deployed to capture the sheen and protect the shore. In terms of the submerged oil, we have begun to survey the affected area. Today, Unified Command divers began their work underwater in selected areas to evaluate our planned recovery methods for submerged oil. Our team also conducted a multi-beam sonar survey and profiled the seafloor in the area our experts have prioritized. The combination of these results and expert knowledge of the local waters will direct our underwater recovery efforts and help determine whether we should expand our search. As I mentioned, the support of those who know these waters best has been a great help to our efforts. As for the remaining visible oil, much of it remains concentrated near the shoreline. As the tides ebb and flow, we will likely continue to see oil churned up by the wave action. Our teams will remain on the beach to capture any oil as it comes to shore. On the beaches, 5 teams of recovery experts are conducting shoreline cleanup assessments to determine the best method of removing oil. Of the 930 workers in the field, approximately 600 are cleaning the beach. They are collecting oil seaweed and kelp from the shoreline, as well as manually cleaning the oil from the cliff face and the large stationary rocks. We are also evaluating various methods for cleaning smaller rocks. In addition, we are extending our beach cleanup activities into Ventura County out of an abundance of caution. Final test results regarding the source of the tar balls that have washed ashore at these beaches are not available at this time. Because we have the resources to assist in the cleanup of these beaches, our work teams will be cleaning Hollywood, McGrath, San Buenaventura beaches in Ventura County. Until we know more, we will act as if it is related to our incident and commit to doing what is necessary to clean Ventura's beaches. On the bluffs, the area west of southbound 101, we are planning test digs so we can evaluate the best way to address this area. In the culvert area, we have largely completed the initial cleanup. We are continuing to resurvey it to determine what additional work is necessary. Pat will come forward now with an update focusing on the work being done and conducted at the release site. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for being here. At the release site, we are now turning our focus to the berm that runs alongside the starting point of the culvert. We will remove all the oiled soil and repair the berm as necessary. As for the pipeline, this morning, the affected section of the pipe was sent off for further evaluation to an independent laboratory approved by PHMSA. As soon as we finish removing the oiled soil from under the pipe, we will then replace the section of pipe. We expect that work to be completed sometime tomorrow. In the coming days, we will begin to carry out the steps outlined by PHMSA to empty the remaining oil from the pipeline. And as a reminder, we know the community is interested in the cause and have great concern, but we are not in a position to discuss what we saw, what the pipe looks like, or anything about the affected piece of pipe until the active investigation is complete. And finally, I want to remind the community about our claims line. For those who have questions or would like to submit a claim if they feel they have been affected, please call the toll-free number 866-753-3619. We are actively working to address claims as they are received. And again, we regret the unfortunate accidental release that occurred, and we are working diligently with Unified Command to address them all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, if there are questions. Okay, you are?
I'm Lily Tan with KSBY.
Okay.
A question for Dr. Valentine. Can you talk about your divers today and more about the submerged oil they may have found?
Certainly. So my name is David Valentine. I'm a professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara in marine science. I study geochemistry and microbiology, and I've been working in the seeps here for about 15 years. So UCSB has had teams out a number of times, as recently as yesterday. looking at the issue of submerged oil in 3 different locations. These teams have identified submerged oil. This information was passed on to the response, which is looking into each of those areas. We've also identified 2 areas bracketing those 3 sites on both to the east and to the west that we were unable to locate any submerged oil. So far 5 sites, 3 of which did contain some submerged oil. They were near shore. These were shallow reefs in the depth range of 15 to 30 feet. And it's my understanding that these are some of the areas that are being looked at as we speak by dive teams.
Okay, so they're out today.
As I understand it from just what I heard a moment ago, that Response has dive teams out today. UCSB does not have any teams out today.
Okay, and can you talk about how the oil sort of gets there? You know, most of it we see as a sheen. What the environmental impacts are potentially, and the process of removal.
So I can tell you from my opinion as a scientist, not necessarily from the perspective of Response, that these are oils that are very adhesive. They're Monterey crude oils. They have a high level of adhesiveness to different materials. So coming out on the beach, you would expect that some of this material will stick to sand, and that sand acts as a form of ballast that can bring the oil down to the seafloor. So all along, we've suspected that some amount of this oil may have submerged to the seafloor. We have in fact confirmed that, and now that's being assessed more formally by Response.
And then, what are the environmental impacts of it? Does it affect wildlife or the water, and how do you remove it?
Yeah, so I'm not an ecologist, so I can't really get to that question. Certainly any oil in the environment can have an impact, but I don't have any specifics for you on that.
Okay, and do you need to remove it, or what's the process for that?
That is totally out of my wheelhouse, so I will have to pass that one on to somebody who knows more about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can anyone answer that?
The question is about.
So, I'm sorry, I'll repeat a question if it's helpful. Okay. So, I'm Ivana Dassey, Deputy Administrator at the Office of Spill Prevention and Response. The question was about how we go about removing submerged oil, as well as what different ecological assessments will be about that. We have a number of folks here who work down in the Deepwater Horizon spill, as well as the spill down in Florida, the Berman spill, which you may remember almost all of it sunk. And so there are a number of different methods. The question is, what methods will work best given the environment out there? And I think it might have been in the 2nd or the 3rd day of the press conference, I talked about natural resource damage assessment, and that is how we as the state, as well as other trustee agencies, sample and determine the long-term or short-term environmental effect, and then how we ameliorate that effect through restoration. So I hope that was helpful. You're looking like not so helpful.
Can you say it a little simpler? What it could do to the environment, and are you going to be removing it or not?
So what I can say is, as I've said all along, we will remove what we can remove in such a way that we don't make it worse, right? We won't be digging up seafloors if that's going to be making it worse. There are a number of other things out there. So our shoreline cleanup assessment teams, we have teams that are very similar that are dealing with the submerged oil, determining the best cleanup methods. If we can clean it up in a way that is appropriate, we will. If we can't, then we will do long-term monitoring and figuring out whatever additional natural resource damage is associated with that.
And can it harm the waters or wildlife if it's left there?
So that gets back further into what is it associated with, and I can't really comment on that right now, but we can follow up with you if you'd like. Yep.
Are you from PHMSA as well?
I am not from PHMSA as well.
Where are they? Are in Ohio? I know the PIOs on the East Coast. Is a PHMSA person here today, right now?
I don't know, but
Because everyone's saying that they're not going to talk about the cause. We'll let PHMSA do it. But where are they? Why aren't they here?
I'm sorry, I can't comment on that.
That's the U.S. Department of Transportation.
This unified command you see here is composed of all the response agencies. We keep the investigation deliberately separate from the response part. So what's going on with PHMSA, I recommend you contact them. We try to keep the response.
The pipe out yesterday? I heard that. So they were there, but they don't bother coming here to answer our questions.
You'll have to leave those questions to them. Thank you.
We're wondering about that. Like, why can't we get a photo? And where in Ohio is this metallurgic task?
I can speak to that.
And if you could talk about claims too, I've got the news director saying, talk me through how much money, how many checks you've cut.
To start with that one, I can't answer that question about how much money. Our primary focus right now is on the health and safety of the responders, the community, and the environment. To speak a moment about PHMSA, they have been on site on the pipeline throughout the entire process. The process was prescribed by PHMSA. They are with the pipe. They will supervise the metallurgical testing when it gets to the lab, and I'm sure at some point in time they'll have a statement for you.
Where in Ohio? You're just not saying anything different.
For security reasons, we're not saying where the laboratory is.
Is that because lawyers are saying you guys can't talk about what you saw yesterday? I mean, at some point, we're not allowed to fly over, right? We're not allowed to have the quads, the drones. And you guys have got to have seen something. Is there something you can do to prevent another spill by what you saw yesterday?
So again, to answer your first question, and I'll repeat, PHMSA has been on scene with multiple inspectors since the beginning. They oversee it, they supervise it. We have a third-party independent lab that's involved in the actual oversight. They will be with that pipe. They have custody of it, and they will be dealing with that. And for security reasons, we cannot, and we have an active investigation. And as a result of it being an active investigation, it wouldn't be appropriate for any of us to comment about it. And
Say, hey, it's something we can fix so we can prevent this.
again, until the investigation's over, we don't want to be as however long as it takes. It could take weeks, it could take weeks, or it could take months. But we want to make sure, the important thing is we want to make sure we get the facts straight, that we understand.
Bad yesterday?
I couldn't comment.
Ladies and gentlemen, all right, as the Unified Command has told you here, this is about the response portion. The investigation is separate from this, and no one up here is going to be able to answer those questions. So if you'll work with me later, I'll see what I can do to help you with that part. Are there other questions, please?
Yeah, so do the Plains folks have a response to the letter yesterday from 3 senators, two from California, one from Massachusetts, calling the response insufficient and raising questions about whether local responders were used?
Could you repeat that, Javier? I couldn't hear all of it.
Yeah, so yesterday, Diane Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, and Markey from Massachusetts sent a letter out calling the response insufficient, raising questions about how fast you guys use first responders locally, volunteers. Does Plains have a response to that?
So the question is about the timeline to the response, if I heard you correctly, from the
Specifically
senators.
about the letter from the 3 senators.
So again, we understand the community has questions, and the investigation will answer those questions. But until then, it would be inappropriate for any of us to respond to that. But all the detail around the incident and response will be established by that investigation. Until then, again, it would be inappropriate to respond ahead of time. That would be speculation. However, what I can say is that the incident response is a joint effort, as you can see behind me, with Unified Command and over the 1,200 responders who've responded to this incident. All of our organizations are activated our response plans as soon as possible. No one wants an oil spill, and we all wish we could always act faster. But our focus is now on completing the cleanup, protecting the workers, and minimizing any further impact.
Follow-up. Do you think the response was insufficient?
No, I do not.
All right, was there another question, please?
Yeah, mine's wildlife related, and it may sound a little odd, but CHP today reported an injured sea lion on Highway 101 right near here at 154, which obviously sounds very odd. Do any of you know anything about a response to that area?
I don't think so we have at this time, but if you'll meet with me later, we'll track that one down for you. Is there another question related to the response?
Where in Ohio is the metallurgic lab?
As said, I'll work with you because these guys are the responders. They're not the investigators. They're not going to have that information for you. So we'll work with you to see what we can do. Are there other questions related to the response?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your question, please?
So, how are you going to figure out how you're going to clean up the rocks? I was down at Refugio today, and there are stains all over big rocks or way up from the waves. Do you know how you're going to do that without harming the rocks? Or what are the
So the question is, how are we determine how we are going to be cleaning up the large boulders over at Refugio, as well as any, and I'll just expand it, as well as any other shorelines. So you may remember me talking about how we go through times of response, right? You take away the gross oil, and then you're left with what you're now seeing there. And so we have teams that basically set up what we call shoreline treatment recommendations. That's done by the SCAT team, and there are probably 3 or 4 different methods that will go to the unified command, and then they will have their recommendation for how to clean that up. So right now they're evaluating, as far as I know, they're evaluating a couple of different methods for how to clean up those rocks. So I'm sorry, before, you may remember me reporting that one of the methods that they were using was scraping with blunt nose shovels, as well as metal scrapers. And then around the bottom, they would have sorbent pads so that everything that they collected was collected that way. They were not allowed to scrape any biological material on there. So no mussels, no barnacles, no seaweed. And I'm sorry, you had a follow-up question for me?
You know how long that's going to take?
I don't know how long that's going to take, because part of it is how well the method works. So typically what we'll do is we'll go out and do a trial for a short area, see how it works. If it works well, then we expand it. If it doesn't work as well as we thought, then we go back and try and figure out something that's going to work better. So you do have the commitment of Fish and Wildlife that we will work to clean it up, we will go through restoration, and we will do it in a way that does not cause more harm to the environment.
Can you sort of, Michael, say when the pipeline that will go in tomorrow possibly get started again? Because I'm wondering where the oil's going that is coming off the oil rigs when you don't have the pipeline working.
Excuse me. I can't say exactly when the pipeline, we will work with PHMSA. The details of the plan to restart the pipeline will be prescribed by PHMSA.
Where does the oil go at the moment? Is it just being stockpiled that's coming from the rigs?
I have no idea where it's going now.
That's up to Exxon or whatever.
One last question?
Yeah, Wednesday at a planning commission meeting, county planning commission meeting, a planner described the pipe as having an 8-inch by 4-inch hole. Does anybody want to confirm that or deny that?
Okay. Again, this is the response team. They cannot respond to questions about the investigation. Anything dealing with the pipeline is related specifically to the investigation, and they're not going to be able to provide you any answers on it. Is there another question related to the response?
How often will you do these briefings now? Are they just sort of still going to do daily on the weekend?
The operational period is changing, and we will notify you if we're going to continue briefings as appropriate for operations, especially if there's new activity. At this time, we're going with this one because there is a community meeting from 11 to 2 tomorrow, the Elks Lodge in Goleta. We invite everyone to be there.
We wanted to interview someone who's actually got a claim to check. Is there anybody that I could find, like a real fisherman or a hotel?
Anything? I don't have anything there.
Well, that would be confidential, but we are actively pursuing all claims through our claim line.
Any other questions related to the response?
Yes. Dr. Zaccardi, can you comment on what the wildlife count and as well as whether the submerged oil could impact any wildlife?
My name is Sean Moe. I'm a lieutenant with Fish and Wildlife, Osberg. The information I have on wildlife as of last night at 8 o'clock, that's when we get it from the care facilities, are as of 8 o'clock last night, we have yesterday we collected 1 live and 4 dead birds for a total of 40 live and 22 dead. Marine mammals in the last 24 hours, we had 6 live and 4 dead collected for a total, since this incident started, 28 live and 14 dead.
Are those all oil? Some of them oil, some of them not oil? You know?
I don't know the specifics, but I can tell you that usually in incidents like this, once the necropsy is performed, we'll find out that many of those died from other reasons and could have been oiled afterwards, that kind of thing. Not to say, it's going to be a mixture of both.
Can you spell your name too before you leave?
Moe, M-O-E.
And your first name?
Sean, S-E-A-N.
Can you answer the second part of my question or jump?
What?
Yeah, let's let Mike go.
So, my name is Mike Zaccardi. I'm with the UC Davis Oiled Wildlife Care Network. Just a bit of a clarification on the animals. All the live birds that have come in to date have been externally oiled. Dead birds and the marine mammals, we're continuing to do the evaluation on those animals, the dead mammals in particular. We consider them either visually oiled or not visibly oiled. We do not determine cause of death at this time. That's determined later if the natural resource damage assessment chooses to pursue that. As far as the impact of oil on animals, we do. Well, submerged oil, I can't address. I can address effects of oil overall. Even a small amount of oil on a seabird can cause problems. Even a dime size drop of oil on a bird can cause a situation where they can get cold in the environment and require recovery. Our teams are out there trying to capture, collect as many live animals as we can to ensure that the best achievable care is given to those animals. So at this point, whether that is adherent oil, fresh oil, tar balls, etc., our main goal is to get out there as quickly as possible, collect those animals, and get them into our experts to get them the best care.
Can you say how far away you found the dead birds? Because I have a photo sent to me from Silver Strand of a big oily bird dead.
Okay.
Would you have gone that far down to get a dead bird?
We have actually operations all the way through the area. Currently in Refugio, we're going from Gaviota all the way down through Ventura. We do have teams out in the South Bay incident as well, trying to cover those. I don't have exact numbers and locations of those animals collected today.
Your numbers were local.
The numbers that we're reporting today are from the Refugio event. We'll actually be reporting any animals that may be collected from the South Bay incident separately. Okay? Thank you.
Any last questions? Okay, thank you very much. This concludes the interview.